In the afternoon of August 12, 1997, a group of 11 tourists, along with their guide, set out to explore Antelope Canyon in Arizona. They were expecting a day filled with awe-inspiring sights, narrow passageways of sandstone shaped by centuries of wind and water, shifting light that painted the walls in warm hues, and a unique natural wonder that had drawn travelers from all over the world. But what started as a routine tour soon took a drastic turn. As the group wandered through the canyon, capturing photos of the smooth rock formations, they heard a low rumbling sound in the distance. It wasn't the sound of footsteps or a gust of wind. It was something much more ominous. Moments later, a sudden rush of water, carrying mud and debris, surged through the narrow canyon. The flood was so powerful and fast-moving that it left almost no time to react. In a matter of seconds, all but one member of the group were swept away. This is the story of the 1997 Antelope Canyon flash flood. To understand what happened that day, it's important to look at the larger weather patterns at play. The summer of 1997 was particularly affected by El Niño, a natural climate phenomenon where the waters in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean become unusually warm. This warming can lead to significant changes in weather patterns, bringing increased rainfall, temperature shifts, and even storms to affected regions. That year, Arizona had been experiencing more unpredictable weather, including unexpected rainstorms that made flash floods more likely in certain areas. The tour that led to Antelope Canyon had begun several days earlier. The guide, Francisco Quintana, worked for a company called Trek America, which specialized in taking European tourists through scenic locations in the southwestern United States. It was Quintana's first day on the job, and things hadn't gone as planned. He was 2 hours late to pick up the group. But despite the delay, the tour moved forward. Over the next several days, the group visited various locations, including Denver, the Arkansas River, and Brownsville, where they went whitewater rafting. They also traveled to Silverton and Ouray for a mountain biking excursion, but rain forced them to cancel that part of the trip. Instead, they continued their journey heading toward Monument Valley to see historic Native American ruins before making their way to Lake Powell for water skiing. By the time they arrived near Antelope Canyon on August 12, the group had already been through a packed itinerary of outdoor activities. The visit to Antelope Canyon was meant to be a highlight of their trip, a chance to explore one of the most visually stunning landscapes in the region. Upon arriving at the canyon, the group was met with a word of caution. A local resident handling admission payments warned them that a storm had recently passed through the area, increasing the risk of flash floods. While the sky above Antelope Canyon may have seemed clear, heavy rainfall in distant areas can still send water rushing through the narrow passageways with little to no warning. Antelope Canyon is a slot canyon, a deep, narrow crevice in the landscape formed over thousands of years by water erosion. It is located on Navajo land in northern Arizona near the town of Page. Over time, rain and wind have sculpted the sandstone into smooth, flowing patterns, creating an almost otherworldly appearance. The canyon is known for its vibrant colors, ranging from deep reds to golden hues, and its dramatic lighting conditions, where beams of sunlight filter through the narrow openings above, creating a breathtaking visuals. At its narrowest, parts of the canyon are only about 3 feet wide. While this makes for incredible photography opportunities, it also poses risk, especially when it comes to flash flooding. Because of the canyon's structure, water can enter quickly, rising to dangerous levels within minutes, with no easy escape routes. That day, despite the warning, the group decided to proceed with their tour. They walked deeper into the canyon, admiring the smooth, twisting rock formations and the way the light danced along the walls. But unknown to them, rain had fallen miles away, and the floodwaters were already underway. Then came the sound. the low rumbling that quickly turned into a roar. Before anyone could process what was happening, a powerful surge of water came barreling down the canyon. The force was immense, carrying with it debris, mud, and anything in its path. The group had little time to react. The narrow walls, which had once felt like a natural wonder, now became a trap, leaving almost no chance for escape. Just 2 hours before the tour group arrived at Antelope Canyon, a severe thunderstorm warning was issued about 15 miles north near Lecce Rock. The storm brought heavy rains to higher elevations, but at Antelope Canyon itself, only a light drizzle fell. At that time, there was no indication of immediate danger. However, while the tour group explored the canyon, floodwaters were already beginning to build elsewhere. At around 3:30 p.m., officers from the Arizona Department of Public Safety responded to a flood on Route 88. The storm had unleashed a downpour, sending water rushing into low-lying areas. That same flood was now making its way toward Antelope Canyon, funneled through the narrow, twisting corridors of sandstone. It wasn't just water. This flood water carried mud, rocks, wood, and debris, creating a powerful force that was nearly impossible to outrun. At the same time, inside Antelope Canyon, tour guide Francisco Quintana led his group deeper into the slot canyon. The group was initially larger, but some members had chosen to leave early, feeling uneasy in the tight enclosed space. That left Quintana with 5 remaining tour members, plus 6 other visitors who were exploring separately. Together, they hiked toward a well-known feature of the canyon called the Eye of the Eagle, a natural rock arch with a circular hole carved by erosion. Then, just a few hundred feet inside the canyon, something changed. The ground began to vibrate. At first, it was subtle, but within moments, the walls themselves seemed to tremble. Quintana later described seeing the dust and dirt on the floor lift several inches off the ground, as if it were being shaken from below. And then came the sound, a deep growing roar unlike anything natural in the canyon. It was unmistakable. As someone familiar with the area, Quintana knew immediately what was happening. This was the sound of a flash flood rushing toward them. There was almost no time to react. Within seconds, a wall of water, thick with mud and debris, tore through the canyon. Due to the narrow passageways, the water was compressed into an immense force, rising as high as 11 feet in some areas. Quintana tried to shout a warning, but the noise of the flood was deafening, louder than jet engines, he would later say. For those trapped inside, there were few options. The ladders they had used to enter the canyon were not securely bolted to the walls, meaning they could easily be torn away by the floodwaters. In the chaos, most of the group was swept away almost instantly. Somehow, Quintana managed to grab onto a small ledge as the flood surged past him. He struggled to hold on, attempting to reach for others, but the force of the water made it impossible. As he clung to the rock, the flood battered him against the canyon walls. The sheer power of the current ripped his clothing, making him almost naked, left deep scrapes on his skin, and pummeled him with debris. Later, he would describe the experience as being trapped inside a washing machine lined with sandpaper. The flood was so intense that when it slammed into the canyon walls, water reportedly shot 30 feet into the air. It was a force of nature far stronger than any human could resist. The people in the canyon had only moments to react, but for most, there was no escape. As Quintana held on for his life, the flood raged on. The question now was whether he could survive long enough for the waters to recede, or if he too would be carried away. After the devastating flood in Antelope Canyon, Francisco Quintana managed to survive by clinging to a ledge for hours. Eventually, as the waters receded, rescuers and local residents from the town of Page arrived at the scene to assist. Quintana was found and brought to safety, battered and exhausted, but alive. Unfortunately, the 11 other hikers in the canyon were not as fortunate. The powerful floodwaters had carried them through the winding passageways of the canyon, ultimately sweeping them 4 miles downstream into Lake Powell. The search for them was difficult, as the floodwaters remained dangerously high throughout the night, making it impossible for rescuers to begin their efforts. The flood finally subsided at around 4 a.m. the next day, allowing recovery operations to begin. Among the victims, 7 were tourists from France: Beatrice Aline, Servain Alain, Thierry Castel, Sophie Fromm, Elsa Pasquale, Anita Lohr, and Paul Lohr. The remaining victims included Benjamin Partrick and Chi Chin Yang from the United States, Charlotte Warmington from England, and Anders Wasenius from Sweden. Anita and Paul Lohr, a married couple, had left their 2 children aged 10 and 12 at their hotel, expecting to return after the tour. When they never came back, their children asked the hotel staff for help. The heartbreaking news of their parents' passing was shared with them, and they were temporarily taken in and comforted by a French family. In total, 8 of the victims were found in Lake Powell. 1 was recovered within the canyon itself, and 2 were never found. The tragic loss of life left an impact on everyone involved, from the families of the victims to the first responders who worked tirelessly in the recovery efforts. Following the incident, the Coconino County Sheriff's Department led the investigation into what had happened. Their final report concluded that no one was directly at fault for the tragedy. Instead, they focused on understanding how to prevent such incidents in the future. It was later revealed that a staff member at Antelope Canyon had advised hikers to leave the canyon due to the risk of flash flooding. Some followed the warning and left the area, but Quintana and 5 members of his tour group returned about an hour later, unaware of the danger that was approaching. When prosecutors reviewed the case, they determined that there was no legal basis for filing criminal charges against Trek America, the company that had organized the tour. Before this tragedy, safety measures in Antelope Canyon were minimal. Visitors could access the canyon freely after paying a small admission fee, and guided tours were not required. There was also no formal flood warning systems in place to alert visitors of potential dangers. In response to the disaster, major changes were made almost immediately. Strict safety regulations were introduced, requiring all visitors to be accompanied by a licensed guide. Tour operators were now required to monitor weather conditions carefully, and canyon access would be restricted whenever there was a risk of flash flooding. Additionally, warning systems were put in place to alert hikers of potential dangers in real time. Interestingly, despite or perhaps because of the tragic event, Antelope Canyon saw a rise in international visitors in the years that followed. The incident received widespread attention in France, where 7 of the victims had been from, making the canyon well known in the country. Today, it remains a popular destination for travelers from all over the world. Since that fateful day, and with the new safety measures in place, there have been no further fatalities in Antelope Canyon. Despite the tragedy that occurred in 1997, the beauty of Antelope Canyon remains unchanged. The smooth flowing sandstone's walls continue to mesmerize visitors, with light beams piercing through the narrow passageways, creating a breathtaking and almost surreal atmosphere. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you. I put in a lot of effort into my videos, and although my videos don't have the same quality as other bigger channels, I truly aim to give you the best experience possible. I would really appreciate it if you can like and subscribe to my channel so that one day I can offer you a much better experience. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.